In today's video, we are going to flash back to some of the old builders in previous iterations of NBA 2K. We're also going to look at some confirmed and announced news for NBA 2K24. We're then going to get into my wish list for the 2K24 builder for my career. We'll then also take a look at some quality of life improvements that I would like to see implemented in 2K24 or at least future iterations of the game. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Right now, you're looking at the original builder on NBA 2K, and yes, you're looking at something that is very bare bones, and I can't imagine going back to some system like this, and I'm sure 2K itself could not imagine doing that either, because this system is very outdated and honestly doesn't help the consumer, doesn't help the company. It's very good that they've moved off of this, and as you can see at the very top, you would choose kind of an archetype for your player. Now, I've played every single NBA 2K since about 2K8, so trust me, I'm in the know here when it comes to what the old games were like and kind of the improvements we've seen over time. So you kind of lock yourself into one playstyle. Do you want to be a slasher, shot creator, a playmaker, a lockdown defender, a sharpshooter? Do you want to be a rebounder, a rim protector, post scorer? What do you want to be? And you lock yourself into that one archetype. And off of that, you get specific badges that could reach a certain level, which there's some benefits to that, of course. But then you also look at the way that you look at upgrading your player. Shooting off the dribble, layups, dunks, mid-range, three-point shooting. All of these things kind of wavered. You didn't even have a real idea of what your ratings would even get to with this old builder system. It's very outdated, and this is really the first builder we ever had in the 2K franchise. Now we flash forward to the 2K19 builder, and this one was ahead of its time. This was really groundbreaking when they implemented this with the 2-skill builder. You could choose to have a primary skill, which was your kind of main playstyle that would really dictate what your player was able to do, and then your secondary skill was kind of, hey, what else is my player good at? Here in the graphic, you're going to see the primary skill was a playmaking type player with shot creation as the secondary skill, and because of that, you can see the ball handling, passing, and the mid-range scoring. The layups were all relatively high, good speed and acceleration, good stamina, which it's a very good build, honestly. I think like this kind of builder was ahead of its time, like I said, and I think there was a lot of good things that came out of this builder for what we see today. But you look kind of again at what this builder was limited in. Again, you don't know your ratings. The badge info and totals, there wasn't really a lot of flexibility. You got certain badges, you didn't get other ones, which first of all, that's very good for balance. But secondly, it's kind of restrictive. And there wasn't a lot of different archetype combinations. Yes, you could go through and, find different pairs. But again, this isn't the best for the consumer, and it's definitely not the best for the company, which is why moving into 2K20, they kind of played around with it a little bit more in what was, again, another ahead of the curve type of builder. Remember, most of the other gaming industries, gaming franchises out there like EA, specifically, they don't have anything like this when it comes to online career modes. San Diego Studios, who produces MLB The Show, does not have anything like this. This is really a kind of one-of-a-kind builder type system that 2K has, and they have improved on it pretty much yearly, and I really do love the work that they put in. There's been some flack right now saying, oh, well, 2K17 was the best game, or 2K19, 2K20, everyone goes through and the nostalgia rings through. To be honest with you, these games are outdated. And they get passed up very easily. I actually downloaded 2K20 for this video. You'll be seeing some different clips of me playing 2K20 and some other games throughout this video as well. But if you look at this builder, this was, again, ahead of its time. 431 attributes remaining for upgrades, and you would go through and you'd be able to kind of pick what you want your player to do. This was the pie chart system, so you'd have caps based on what you had chosen, but then you had a little bit of flexibility of what do I want to do, where should I put my ratings, do I value three-point shooting, do I value pass accuracy, post moves, where do I value some of these ratings? It's very interesting to look back at. There was even a lateral quickness rating, which that got nixed later on, and of course the physicals were a little bit different as well back in that game. So it's very interesting to look back at and see how the builder has changed and been renovated and progressed over time into what we now currently have in 2K23, where this is just some random image I found on the internet. I don't know whose build this is. I've got plenty of builds. Maybe I'll flash mine up on the screen too. But you see kind of the overall differences and kind of how they've overhauled the entire process, whereas now your ratings are kind of a blank canvas, but they are tied to your height, your weight, your wingspan, and I think it does create a decent amount of balance, but it still gives the consumer the ability to make the type of player they want to make. And there were some downfalls in 2K23. I think all the players were, I would say, a little overpowered. Maybe the builder was a little too strong, maybe a little bit too many attribute points to hand out, potentially, I would say. Because a lot of builds were, hey, I can do everything type of builds, and we'll get into some of the other flaws with that as well. But just looking at the builder improvements as we go through these, it's been pretty obvious that the builder's gotten better and better and better. There's been more, free will, I would say, for the users, and I think that's a really good thing. Going into 2K24, I do expect some steps forward in that department, which is a really awesome component. And when we get to my 2K24 wish list, first of all, Kobe Bryant on the cover for 2K24, super fitting. Love to see him on the cover as well, one of the most iconic players in NBA history. But there are a few things that I do think 2K24 could really expand upon from previous iterations of the franchise. And this is mostly focused on my career and some of the online modes through that, where you have your own My Player and you go in and play Park or Rec or Pro-Am. I'm more of a Rec Center Pro-Am player, so those are the two things I'm going to be mostly focused on in this video. But I do hope you guys enjoy. If you are new to Utility Sports, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. For my returning viewers, you might be wondering, wait, where's all the other NBA content? Don't worry, it's coming. I'm working on some really big things. Very excited about it, but kind of off-season slowed down. Damian Lillard, James Harden haven't been traded yet. We'll get to it at some point. There's going to be some more NBA news. We're going to start up our NBA draft coverage as well. So be patient, stick with me, and have some fun with these NBA 2K videos, which we will see a little bit more on the channel this year. So first of all, some of the important news, and I think this is a really great place to start, that has been announced for 2K24, and we're going to start with Pro Play, which you're going to see a graphic on the screen now kind of detailing what Pro Play is. And I think this is something that could completely change how NBA 2K functions and kind of the gameplay and the realism that we see in what is labeled a simulation basketball game. And I think that's going to be really great for the consumers as long as it's done correctly and as long as it's executed properly. Now, that's always the tough part, right? And people, there's YouTube videos out there on how to exploit the game, and that always causes problems. But I do think it opens the window for 2K to implement more realistic plays, more realistic play styles, more realistic animations, and overall the product is going to take steps forward through this new Pro Play feature that they have. So I'm very excited to see that. I think that's going to be an awesome element to the game as long as it's done correctly. Also, Mike Wang, known as Baluba on Twitter, recently tweeted out that quick drops, very broken animation in 2K23, have been removed. Now, I think quick drops, yes, they were problematic. I think limitless takeoff was the most problematic badge 2K's maybe ever had. The amount of dunks in 2K23 was off the charts. And if you watch real NBA basketball and you watch an NBA 2K23 game, you're going to notice that there's about 100 more dunks a game seemingly than in a true NBA game. So I think that's something that they have to figure out. And if you're going to label yourself a simulation basketball game, it has to be a little bit closer to real life. Now, I'm not expecting an exact replica here, but you need the game to play a little bit more like real NBA basketball. And the amount of dunks in the game are just not realistic. I think the removal or at least the nerfing of quick drops is definitely good, but I think there's going to be more changes necessary to getting the product where you want it. And then also, one of my biggest complaints with NBA 2K over the last 5-6 years is that they haven't updated the scoreboard. That doesn't appear to be the case anymore. In an episode of 2K TV, they kind of gave us a teaser of 2K24, and on that you'll see a new ticker bar, which is going to be probably functioning as our new scoreboard. Now, it's very blurry, it's really hard to see, there's not really any detail that you can pull out other than just the shaping at the bottom of the screen, and that is not the traditional 2K scoreboard that we've had for quite a while. I'll try to put a picture in there too of the old one versus the new one, and hopefully you guys can tell the difference there. I'm very excited for that change. It's a small change. Most people are going to say, oh, well, you know, the rec center looks the exact same. I think that new ticker scoreboard is going to be a really great change and a really good implementation into 2K24. I'm very excited for that, especially for my rec and pro-am players out there. You guys got to be excited for that for sure. Let's jump in now to some of my hopes for the builder itself, and I'm sure this is the reason why a lot of people actually clicked onto the video, because this is really where it gets down to the meat and potatoes. I'm very excited for this part. Let's start with badge tiering. And what do I mean by badge tiering? Everyone knows the levels of badges in NBA 2K. You got bronze, silver, gold, and at the very top, Hall of Fame. Everyone wants to have Hall of Fame badges, and the issue, I think, with 2K23 is that everyone could have Hall of Fame badges in more than one category. I look back to some of the other games throughout the franchise history for 2K, and there's been some really great examples of specialist builds. Now, I know everyone doesn't want to make a build and have to grind it to a 99 overall just to be a specialist, but I do think that there needs to be a little bit more of a window to what specialists look like in NBA 2K. And I think my biggest complaint is some of the best badges in the game, some of the best budget badges in the game, get you to a Hall of Fame badge at a low rating for that skill set. For example, MIDI Magician in 2K23, you could get it to the Hall of Fame level at 81 mid-range. Now, to me, if you're a Hall of Fame mid-range level shooter, your rating should probably be in the 90s. And I think that that's a real issue that the game has had. You also look at something like Limitless Takeoff at 92 driving dunk. That's, I mean, gold, I understand. But I just think that there's some things that could be improved by making the badges a little bit more difficult to get, a little bit more reliant on rating. If you want Hall of Fame shooting badges, maybe your three-pointer has to be 97, 98, or 99. If you want gold, maybe it has to be 93, 94, 95. If you want silver, maybe that's where we have a little bit more leeway. Maybe we're looking at 85 to 91-ish. And if you want bronze, it has to be 80 plus. Because right now what we have in NBA 2K is a lot of players can play at 77, 78, 79 ratings and get some good silver badges. And if you play into the 80s, you can get some really nice gold badges that make your player really, really good in some of those areas where maybe your ratings aren't as good as your performance should technically dictate. I think another great example of this is Dimer. To get a Hall of Fame Dimer, which is one of the best passing badges in the game, I know some people have arguments about that. Trust me, it helps your teammates shoot a lot. I have a lot of experience with that. Dimer's a hell of a drug for my friends watching. But Dimer, I mean, 85 pass accuracy is what you needed to get Hall of Fame Dimer in 2K23. That is ridiculous. You're telling, what's the point of going up to a 99 or a 92 or, you know, a 93? I know it's tied to pass velocity, but realistically, like, everyone's going to put their, if you're trying to play point guard, you're going to put your pass accuracy at an 85 or maybe an 86 to get gold needle threader. Like, what's really the benefit to going past that number? There's not a huge benefit. So to me, I think the best way to balance the game is if you want players to be really elite at something, they have to invest some of their ratings into that pretty heavily. And I think 2K23 didn't do enough of that. Too many people are able to get badges at a pretty high level without a ton of attributes being placed into that category, and I think that would be one improvement I want to see in the 2K24 builder. I also want to see new badges. Now, I don't have a ton of ideas here, but I just want to see new badges. It's one of my favorite things every single year is when the new badges come out and we get all excited which ones are going, which ones are staying. Please, for the love of God, NBA 2K, like I said earlier, get Limitless Takeoff out of the game. We don't need as many dunks as we had this year. The rim running and the mashing was insane in the paint. Don't want to see that anymore. But still, nonetheless, we do want to see some new badges. So let's keep the game fresh. I think they do a very good job of this year in, year out. Let's continue to do that moving forward, 2K. Now, this is a big one, and this is one I don't think gets talked enough about throughout the 2K community, which I'm not a big part of, but I do kind of understand what's being said right now in the 2K community. I'm so excited for 2K24. We're less than a month away. Make sure you leave a like if you are enjoying the video so far and if you are excited for 2K24. But something that's really underexplored and under-talked about is Takeover. And for me, Takeover is something that is super important and something that has not really been touched for quite some time. Now, they did make some changes and improvements a few 2Ks ago, but now I think that at this point going into 2K24, we're kind of needing something new, something fresh with Takeover. And it doesn't have to be crazy overpowered, it doesn't have to be massively different, but maybe some different buffs. You know, we've had the same 2 sharpshooting takeovers for a while, we've had the same 3 finishing takeovers for a while, we've had the same 3 lockdown takeovers for a while. I think we could use a little bit of innovation, a little bit of a change there to kind of benefit the game. Again, I don't have any crazy ideas here, but maybe we could tie that into certain things that your player can do that currently are not as explored in the game. Really the big thing that I'm looking for as well this year, and it's not necessarily as much to do with the builder, but more so just my career in general and kind of going into online play, I want more signature animations. Now I think that they did a great job in 2K23 implementing every single individual NBA player's jump shot. That's something that was, you know, a big challenge for them, and they were able to get that out by release. They did a very good job with that. Their jump shot creator every year is very unique and honestly something that you don't see replicated in any other game. Maybe the batting stance creator a little bit in MLB The Show, but for the most part 2K is unmatched when it comes to some of their customization that they have with your My Player in terms of his ability to have signature animations. But I still think that we're lacking in some categories. Specifically, I would say the layup packages are lacking a little bit, and I would also say the passing animations are a little bit lacking as well. Now, they did have some cool ones. Jason Williams was a fun one this year, obviously not super competitive, but fun. LeBron James, Magic Johnson, of course, were some options. Fundamental was in there. You know, there's some options, right? But I would love to see the following. I'd love to see Rajon Rondo. Imagine going into a rec game and you're all of a sudden faking the ball behind your back and you're throwing over the shoulder passes and you're playing like prime Rajon Rondo when you throw flashy passes. That would be sweet, and we need to have something like that in the game. Rajon Rondo, his layup package should also be in the game. You just should have every single thing Rajon Rondo did on the court, because Rajon Rondo was a sick player to watch. And if you're looking for 2K to kind of have some more highlight clips and some of that stuff, you want to have some of those top-end signature animations. I also think a guy like Nikola Jokic deserves some more signature animations coming off of his title run and Finals MVP trophy, where, you know, maybe we get that over-the-head pass that he threw for Denver a few years ago. Something like that would be sweet as a flashy pass package. And then you also look at maybe a guy like Luka Doncic, who throws really strong one-handed passes and cross-court passes and some jump passes, which we don't see a ton of right now in 2K24 unless you actually jump yourself. You know, they could code the game where your guy jumps to throw a pass every once in a while if you have that passing package on your player. So, you know, some people probably wouldn't like that. It'd probably have some passes get stolen because of that. But I still think that there's some things that they could implement into the game that they haven't so far. I also want to see new heights, specifically 7'4" and 7'5" in the builder. Now, who knows if we're going to get that for sure. I've been speculating about this for about 3 years with my friends when I've been talking to them about Victor Wembanyama. For about 3 years, I knew Victor Wembanyama was going to be the first pick, probably a little bit more actually, probably closer to 4. And with them, I was speculating, well, who knows, maybe we'll have 7'4" and 7'5" my players once Victor Wembanyama comes into the league. Now, I know 2K's teased that a little bit. We don't know right now if that's actually going to be a thing. The biggest thing is it needs to be balanced if they do implement it. And that's really my biggest thing. 2K23 was not a very balanced game when it came to the builds. 6'9" players had a huge advantage over 6'8" players because of certain badges that they unlocked at certain tier categories. Most specifically, Slithery was a really good badge for 6'9" players. You also just got a different collection of badges for different price points, which is really important. You also look at 6'1" builds being significantly better than 6'5" builds, despite a 4-inch decrease in size. It was actually quite a bit better to make a 6'1" build this year, just given the amount of attribute upgrades you could make in the builder. So that needs to be addressed and fixed. Going into 2K24, I think that they need to have a little bit more parity. It's not bad for how open of a builder that they have, because again, that makes them more money. You get people putting a lot of money into the game in microtransactions. Really good for the company. I'm not against 2K at all. You know, the more money they can make, the better. They're a company. That's what they should be aiming to do, as long as they have a pretty transparent process and a pretty good game in general that people enjoy playing. You know, people, if they're going to spend their money, more power to them. That's kind of what 2K wants them to do. But at the end of the day, as long as the game is enjoyable, fun, and people like playing the game, that's really the most important thing. And we need to have parity to ensure that we get those elements we're looking for. Some other quality of life improvements that I think are very important and could really help benefit NBA 2K, and these are just some ideas that I have floated to Mike Wang on Twitter a little bit, and a few other things that I think could be pretty good. The first one here is Pro-Am stat tracking and stat keeping, and I don't really understand how they screwed this up, because back in 2K18 it worked perfectly for the entire year. That was my first year of college. I had a bunch of free time on my hands. Me and my friends played about 300 Pro-Am games that year. I know, I had no life. That was before I was doing YouTube. I was single at the time. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. So I played a lot of NBA 2K with my buddies. And we had stats for the entire year. And I loved looking at those stats, and it just kind of felt awesome to be able to kind of relive how your team was doing and all the great times you had with your friends. And now this year, and last couple of years with the seasons, they've kind of screwed that up. The stats get reset. They only get tracked on league nights. They need to fix that. For me, I think just having the totality of statistics so much better. For me, I'm gonna track my stats on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, because I want me and my friends' stats written down and recorded. And if 2K is not going to do it for me, that means I have to do more work and I have to track it myself, which sucks, but it's something I'm willing to do if need be. I also think that something that could really help improve the visual quality of the game is kind of a change to the alternate jerseys for Pro-Am and also the arena itself. Right now they have you playing a gymnasium. I understand, you think about some of the, Twin Cities Pro-Am, some of the Indianapolis Pro-Ams. A lot of those are in high school gyms or, smaller gymnasiums. But this is, again, it's NBA 2K. Not all of this is realistic. You don't see NBA players playing in Pro-Ams all the time, like what we see in 2K, of course, based on the story, the way that the game works, right? We don't need it to be perfectly realistic. I want really great visual quality here. I want to walk into an arena with a bunch of fans. I want kind of the games to feel really important, even if they're, again, fictional games. It's about trying to sell a great product, and having kind of a weird looking gymnasium doesn't really do it for me, honestly. Then you also look at some other visual qualities that I think that they could make, and then a big one here, and I just don't understand how they don't have this, because other games like San Diego Studios and MLB The Show, or EA with NHL, FIFA, Madden, they have these types of things where at the end of a quarter, at the end of the half, you see highlight reels at the end of a period. For NHL 23 from EA, you have short highlight reels. Maybe it's about 15 to 30 seconds only. And it gives you, again, some time to talk with your friends, maybe change your strategy, especially for Pro-Am. I think that's really important. Rec Center, I think it could be pretty good as well. 15 seconds does not really delay the game that much. It's not that big of a problem. And it also, for content creators, someone like me who I'm looking to get into a little bit more 2K content creation, having replays gives me a lot more stuff to build kind of teases with, and some other things that I could do a lot of great content with. And I think it would be really good, not only for people like me, but some of the big end YouTubers, someone like Joe Knows, Laker fans, some of the top end guys who some of you might know. It would be really good for their content, and I would like to use it as well, honestly, which gets me to my final point here on quality of life. And this would be game breaking for content creators, and I think it would be really, really good in general. And it's long form replay that is accessible from maybe a week, 2 weeks after a game. If you go in and load into a Pro-Am game, you should be able to watch a replay of the entire game. And I mean the entire game. You might say, well, that's crazy. With how many 2K players there are, the amount of server space. Listen, Fortnite does it. Fortnite has a bigger map. They have hundreds of players playing their game at a time on one map. They're able to save it and catalog it into a long form replay that expires at some point. And I think 2K should have something like that in their system. Imagine playing a Pro-Am game and you're able to reload the tape and maybe do a film study with your friends, or just look back at it and cut up highlights, which is something I would definitely do if I was able to. 2K doesn't have that, and the issue with 2K is if you don't play on multiple camera angles possession by possession, the editing looks a little weird if you edit together stuff, because first of all, you're dealing with kind of your little score knob, you're dealing with all this stuff on there. It doesn't really look great. And I think that if they had a replay system kind of integrated into the game, it could completely change the way that 2K functions for content creators. And I think that would be a really, really great place to start. Of course, they already have instant replay in their normal modes like My NBA, play now, those kinds of things. Implement something like that into my career. Implement something like that into Rec Center, Pro-Am, maybe even Park, and you really have something that 2K creators would love to use and hype up your game with even more. It would make their lives a lot easier. It's gonna give you good rep in the community, and people are gonna love that tool when it comes to actual video creation. So I think those are all things that, one, would be very beneficial to me, but people around the 2K community would really love in general. This has been my 2K24 wish list. We talked about the builder, we talked about some of the old builders, we talked about pretty much everything in this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. It was a lot of fun, and I had a really good time kind of breaking down some of my hopes and aspirations for 2K24 and the future iterations of 2K. Let me know down in the comment section what you'd like to see in 2K24, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.